I Know You Did Last Summer is directed by Jennifer Caitlin Robinson and stars Madeline Klein, Chase Suey Wonders, Freddie Prinze Jr., Jennifer Love Hewitt, among others. And this is the fourth film in the I Know You Did Last Summer franchise where a group of teens end up getting into an accident that occurs similar to the first film where they end up there's someone that ends up getting accidentally killed and they end up having to make a vow to not ever discuss about it ever again to anyone. And pretty much, if you've seen from the first film, it ends up having a person in a fisherman outfit having to go after him the killer going after him a year later. Now, here's some backstory. Now, growing up, I'll admit that I Know You Did Last Summer, especially with the first one, was one of those kind of movies that I didn't really know much about, that it was capitalizing off the success of Scream, because when Scream came out in '96, it really changed how we saw with slasher films, and it basically brought the slasher genre back. And essentially, I Know You Did Last Summer, the first one, wouldn't have been made without Scream. And to this day, even rewatching it, I still think it holds up as a fun slasher film. And I just really love the setting. I love the fishermen. And the cast really make it work to their own, especially with Freddie Prinze Jr., Ryan Phillip, and Sarah Michelle Gellar and all that. And I do really enjoy Jennifer Love Hewitt, and I think that I really enjoyed a lot of things. And this was definitely her big break into doing a lot of mainstream stuff. And while I do have some issues still with the writing for both the first and the second one especially, I still think that the first one still holds up as a really fun slasher film, and it knew what it was doing, especially coming off of Scream success. Now, the second one, I Still Know You Did Last Summer, upon rewatching that one again, I still to this day find some issues with it, but I still don't think it's bad. I just think that it's just a really, a misstep, especially from the first one, and it has a lot of things, that film, that I feel like does not work a lot, especially for a lot of the ways that the plot goes, and really the premise behind everything I found really really questionable, and it really there's a lot of things that really make no sense, and there's a lot of really dumb slasher elements that are prominent in that one, and still, it has a likable cast, at least in that one, especially when you got Brandy coming in, and Mekhi Phifer, and even some other ones that come in there like Jeffrey Combs and all that. So to this day, I mean, to this day, I still know is one of those kind of movies that I can still watch as a fun slasher film, because they do up the gore in that one, and they do have some fun stuff in it. But I just feel like it's just one of those like middle of the road type of slasher films. Now with the third one, I finally watched that piece of shit to catching up with the new movie, and I gotta admit, like after so many years avoiding this one, even from the clips I've seen, even watching it finally, I felt like this movie to really stick out the worst, because I felt like it was everything wrong with what you don't do, even when it comes to direct-to-video films. And you could tell it's one of those where it's shot like they was really shot fucking cheap, and the way the camera just won't stand still and stuff with the hyper editing and everything. And while they do add some cool gore and stuff in certain parts, I really felt like the story behind this one makes really little sense how it tries to connect to the other two films, because they actually go supernatural in this, of all things. And I feel like that was definitely such an insult to the other two films. And so, for many years, I kind of always wondered if they were going to... I didn't really think that they were really going to do another one, because, well, I'm not going to go into spoilers, but if you've seen how the I Still Know ends, it kind of really makes you wonder, like, okay, how exactly would they make a sequel to that? And so, since Scream 5 came out a couple years ago and was basically brought back the slasher genre, or actually no, I give it more credit with Halloween, since Halloween 2018 basically came back and was pretty much bringing slasher genres back and everything. It's cool to see at least these franchises coming back, and because since that one and also Scream 5 came out, they've been talking about now the last couple years trying to bring it back. And for a while they were actually going to originally have Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt after the second film to come back at one point, but just things didn't come across, and they had script changes over the years. And originally at this point, this movie was only supposed to be just a full-on reboot. And then when word got into it that Jennifer Love Hewitt had to fight basically for longer screen time and stuff, and pretty much, and instead of just a cameo and everything, it was one that I could see what they were going for, because they wanted to try to capture the whole legacy sequel like we have recently with slasher films. And so, going into the trailers from this, I will admit that I was actually intrigued with what they were going to do with it, even though I knew going into it it was going to be pretty much kind of what we already got from the first film. But I was still willing to give it some chance, because I do like the overall franchise, at least with the first movie, and the second one I can still watch and still tolerate. And after upon seeing the film, I can say that it's a really weird kind of bag for me. On one hand, most of the film is just kind of just mediocre. It's fine at best. And then there's the other part of me that just really feels so critical and so cynical with this film because there's a really big thing that I won't get into spoilers with, but there's something that really happens toward the climax that really brings it down really to a point to where it kind of ruins the rest of not only this film, but in a way it also really feels like it shouldn't even exist. If you know what I mean. So. But before I get into that, to get my pros out of the way, the cast in this, they're tolerable. I mean, the younger cast that come into this, I think the biggest ones that stand out is the girl that is Madeline Klein, who plays kind of our secondary lead to the main girl in the film. I think she did a really great. I thought she did a really good job. And at first, I wasn't really getting into her character because but I wasn't really getting into her performance at first because it really took a while to really see how it played out with her. But as the movie went along, and even for the rest of the cast, they actually did grow on me for the most part. And that's something that I kind of had a similar feeling like I had with Hellfest, how it started out that way of kind of like some annoying characters and saying certain dumb things and certain dialogue that just doesn't really work for me, especially when it's trying to be funny at times. But the way the movie played along, though, I still got into the performances for the most part, except for one. There is one that really stood out for me that really, I think, really did not work, and that was the girl that played the podcaster and stuff. I felt like the way that she reacted and the way that she was very scared, trying to be scared at one point, I thought it was really not only really cringe at times, but it just really came across very phony. And she just really couldn't. She really didn't do a good job with that. But the rest, it's just also great seeing Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt come back, and for what they have to work with, I still enjoy their performances and stuff. And there's some nice little callbacks that we kind of get from both of their characters and everything. So they definitely are the big standouts for me. There's a couple of kills that I think really stood out the best, especially when we get the harpoon gun kill, and then there's also one later on that I was just like, wow, that's pretty brutal. So there's actually some really good gore that they do throw in there. But I will get into some of my cons of that because there's some stuff that I did have some issues with that, unfortunately, we also had issues with the other films that I had with, but I'll get into that later. The other biggest thing I have to really admit is the presence of the killer itself, of the fisherman, because I like how they make it a lot more menacing with how the fisherman is essentially walking and stomping on the ground and stuff with its footsteps. And the way that the theater was pretty much booming with its sound, I thought really worked with that. And there's also some really great set pieces where it builds some good suspense up and where characters are trying to hide and everything. And I really enjoy like some of the areas they go into, especially this part that's very reminiscent of the first film with the whole kind of like auditorium and stuff. And then you have another part that's kind of like in this like garage or whatever it is, wherever one of our main characters ends up being at one of the main characters' house and stuff. I thought it was a really good set piece because there's like these mannequins and all that. So I thought that was great. And then there's also, it's great to see the setting itself come back with it being in Southport, with the whole like ocean setting and everything. And there's some really fun callbacks that we do see that come into play that I actually thought was very clever at points when they do reference some of the other stuff from the first movie. And we even get some really nice certain stuff that I won't spoil, but there's a really big thing that happens in mid-credits. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool that happened, and it does really make sense. It makes you really makes you want to kind of vouch for more, but also it's just something to really good to see, especially if you're a big fan of the franchise. This is now where I got to get into my cons, and I will have to say that unfortunately what draws the movie back is that it is very rinse and repeat on a lot of stuff that we've seen before in other slasher films, where characters make dumb mistakes. And this movie also does a lot of rehashing of the first film, where it almost feels like it could have been pretty much a remake for most of the movie. And there's also some like red herrings that they kind of really make you really want to think that's going through, but there's some that you kind of wonder like, okay, it's obvious this person is not going to be the killer and everything. And while I do like the whole whodunit aspect in this, I feel like when it gets to its climax, it really gets into something really underwhelming for me that I had to really think about, because it has a plot twist that unfortunately does kind of ruin the rest of the film. Or the kind of ruins the rest of the film for me. But also, I just really, some of the dialogue in this can be very cringe at times, and the characters themselves, they're not really written three-dimensionally to where I really cared for a majority of them, because they don't really have anything that really sticks out for it that I really got myself into. There's one character that does have potential in the film, which is this podcaster, but the way the writing goes, and a lot of the unfortunately the actors that played her didn't really do a good job, and that comes, and also there's another character they actually do follow along the group and stuff that has an interesting that they give a quick backstory on, but there's more they really could have spent more time with, because really a lot of these characters, they don't really like stick out to where I really got into them that much, because they're also really making dumb decisions and stuff that really makes them unlikable at times. And that you could say there's also some other things too that you could say that could be the same thing with some of the other films. But even in the first film, despite some stuff that I didn't really like 100% latch myself onto, I still did get into the way the movie played out with its characters and their chemistry and everything. And plus, even with the original film, even though I prefer Sarah Michelle Gellar's character over Jennifer Love Hewitt's character, I still enjoy the performances of both of them. And they still made their characters work to its advantage, despite some things that even that film could have done a lot better with. But there's more to that. But also the really biggest thing for me is definitely the twist ending this that I feel like really did not work, because there's something that happens that was kind of making me feel like, okay, if this was supposed to happen, how exactly was it supposed to be for the rest of the film? And then the movie does have an unfortunate, predictable level where you pretty much know how it's going to turn out. And when they reveal the twist, I was like, yeah, that didn't work, unfortunately. And it really made me really question was that even a really big type of plot point big type of twist they wanted to go with. And honestly, as much as I enjoyed seeing Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt in this, they have a crucial point in the film, but honestly, they should have done a lot more in this, because really, there's a lot of stuff in this film that there's a lot of times throughout the film where you're just kind of wondering, like, what really is the point of even having Julie in the film? You know what I mean? I just feel like that they should have had like a bigger impact than what we got, especially with Freddie's character. But overall, though, because of that ending and because of that climax and the reveal, it really dragged the movie down for me a lot. And while I didn't hate the movie, and it is definitely a step up compared to that piece of shit third one, unfortunately, it still does miss the mark on some things that really could have brought it back to the genre. And so I was quite a bit underwhelmed with this. And so with that, I'm going to give it, if there's a middle grade between High Disaster and Low Average Joe, I would give it that. But because of that twist ending, I did have to kind of bring the movie down. Unfortunately, the movie is getting a High Disaster rate on the Film Freaks meter. So, for those of you who have also seen the 2025, I know you did last summer, and also the other films, let me know in the comments below what you thought about it. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.